Okay, let's get all of the Swarm basics covered before we go any further. So, of course, if you're already a Swarm rockstar, yeah, go right on ahead to the next module. But if you're not, or you know what, even if you just think a few minutes as like a quick refresher might be good, then stick around. Right, so we're going to talk through a bit of the big picture stuff, like all of the major moving parts, yeah? All of the correct lingo, and you know what, maybe even a few other bits and pieces that I reckon are well worth knowing. So first up, Swarm's the native clustering solution for Docker. Yes, others definitely exist, and good ones as well, but this course is about Swarm, so that's obviously where we'll focus. And these days, Swarm really does hold its own against the likes of Kubernetes and Mesosphere. Right then, the big ticket information, I'm not even sure if that's a saying or not, but the top level concept is that Swarm's a clustering tool. So its entire reason for being is to group large numbers of Docker hosts, meaning Docker engines and daemons, yeah, so that they look and feel like a single large engine. And the whole point of it is to make managing them at scale easier. Alright, let's add some detail to that then. The basic model for managing Docker infrastructure is a fairly standard client-server model. Docker clients send commands to the Docker daemon. That's our client and server right there. Then the daemon obviously acts on those commands, yeah? The important thing is though, those clients can be the native Docker engine client, so the one that you get when you download and install Docker, yeah? Or it can be any number of other third-party products, as long as they implement Docker client functionality. So, as an example, right, the recently released Docker Universal Control Plane, that can act as a Docker client, right? So, it can send commands to Docker daemons. But there's plenty of other products out there that do the same. Then over on the server side, okay, this is usually the Docker engine daemon, but again, it can actually be any listening process that implements the Docker Remote API. That's basically all the server is in this Docker architecture, something that's implementing that Docker Remote API, or you know what, even just a subset of it sometimes. So, yeah, what's the Docker Remote API? It's a versioned, mainly RESTful API. And again, right, just as one example, Joyent have their own very cool implementation of this Docker Remote API. And I do mean very cool. Okay, oh, flippin' heck. Now's probably a great time to mention Swarm actually implements... Actually, you know what? It implements its own API, the Swarm API, but that's mostly compatible with the Docker Remote API. So that means, right, in a Swarm environment, most normal Docker commands are supported and work the same, for the most part, right? Now, we will see this in a second, and I know I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here, but in a Swarm setup, right, a Swarm manager sits here and it implements the Swarm API, so it accepts Docker commands from Docker clients. Remember, we said that Swarm API is mostly compatible with the Docker Remote API. So the Swarm manager, right, I am getting ahead of myself, but it's the server component in a Swarm config. Anyway, okay, let's get back on track. The point being, we've got a client component and we've got a server component, and that's great and all. But to be honest, pretty much falls apart at scale. So, here we've got, I don't know, a few Docker hosts, right? Enough to resemble a small amount of scale. And let's say these are on-premises, these are in the cloud, these are production, these are staging, and these ones have got super fast storage with go faster stripes on the side, right? And you know what? That's by no means a large infrastructure. But even that, I think we can see how difficult managing it could potentially be, especially considering the dynamic nature of a lot of containers and containerized apps. I mean, manually handpicking which nodes to deploy containers to? Look, you might be different to me, but that is not my idea of fun. Well, Docker Swarm to the rescue. So Swarm comes along, right, and it makes all of this look, feel and smell like one big, giant Docker host. And it's intelligent enough to know about things like attributes and metadata. So like, these are production, these are staging, these are on-prem, these are on the cloud, and these ones have the go faster storage stripes on the side. Whatever, yeah? Then, when a new container needs starting in the cluster, we just say, okay, start this old boy on a production system, on-prem, with shiny fast storage. Then we throw the command at Swarm and let Swarm take care of filtering out the nodes that don't match those requirements. And then from the list that's left over that do, Swarm even picks which one to deploy on. And just in case that's not crystal clear from all of the hard slogging I've just done there in PowerPoint, right? This kind of capability, it is like manna from heaven in a large-scale environment. This is the stuff of dreams, right? As are the likes of Kubernetes and Mesosphere as well. I don't want to sound like a Docker shill here, but seriously, if you're going to do this stuff at any kind of scale, this is the stuff you need. So that's the big picture of Swarm, right? Let's go get into a bit more detail.